Have you ever noticed that once you decide to truly commit to something that you want, life tests you to see if you're really about it? That's contrast. That is temptation. It's not always the sexiest thing, it's just any little thing that can distract you. So in this video, I want to jam a little bit on why contrast occurs once you've made a decision, why resistance flares up once you've decided or committed to a path. Let's start with the why. The psychology behind this is interesting. I was looking for more sources. I unfortunately could not find what I was looking for. I know that I read something about this during university, but I wasn't able to find that article. But from what I remember, which is not a primary source, nor even a secondary source, to be honest, from what I remember, part of the kind of brain reaction that occurs when you've decided to commit to something that is either new or unfamiliar to you is that the brain is encountering a little bit of uncertainty. And so when there is uncertainty, there is resistance. When you're like, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself in this direction, life kind of just like throws things at you and is like, are you sure? Because this over here is pretty comfortable. A personal example that happens like too often, in my opinion, is when I decide that I want to deprioritize romance in my life and prioritize work or whatever. Literally the moment that I'm like, ooh, maybe I should be celibate this year, it's bitches all on my phone. It's like, oh, all of a sudden there's suitors at the grocery store and they're like, hi, like, could I have your number? Blah, blah, blah. It's people at Joann Fabrics all of a sudden telling me that I'm beautiful. Thanks. Back up, actually. I said I'm committing to my work this year. I think why this tends to happen, that phenomenon where once you decide you want to commit to A, all of a sudden you have like 17 different options that are trying to distract you from A. I really think that is a type of cosmic joke. I really think it's a little haha tee-hee between you and the universe and reality, because sometimes I think when you decide to do something or commit to something that is different than what you're used to or completely new to you, what happens is you send out a signal. You're sending out like an energetic signal that says, I have decided that this is the shape that I'm going to hold. This is the frequency that I'm going to put forward. And I think that sometimes in response to that, and we can even look at this in a very like Newtonian way, right? Equal and opposite reactions. Sometimes reality or life will toss you some things and be like, are you sure? And it's just testing your shape. Do you actually want to hold this shape? Is this actually the frequency you want to sit in? Is it agitating? Sure, sometimes, sometimes. But once I acclimated to this as a cycle of like, I make a choice and then I experience resistance, like external resistance or external distractions in the way of that choice. Now that I know that this is just part of the process, it's a lot easier to laugh about. It's a lot easier to not get distracted. I'm really interested, do you have the same experience where you make a choice and then all of a sudden there's a bounty, an embarrassment almost of other options that could distract you from that choice? Let me know in the comments. So now let's talk about what to do about it. There are 4 things that I want to share, 4 things that I personally do, and they kind of build on each other, but I also think they can be used individually. The first thing that you can do when you're experiencing that resistance to your intention, to your new commitment, just to start by holding compassion, right? Just being aware that this is a cycle and even choosing to see it as a joke, as a little inside tee-hee-hee between you and life. It can really help to not only depersonalize this experience, but also it takes some of the power away. For example, when I experience contrast or when I receive resistance and distractions after I've made a choice, capital C choice, I will give it a name. And so for me, like my contrast's name is Gerald. And I'm like, oh, Gerald's here. And again, it just helps to take the venom out of it, like take the bite out of it. I did use a sillier example to begin with, but another example could be when I decided that I really wanted to start taking my work seriously and wanted to be more consistent and intentional about publishing my ideas, whether on YouTube or through my newsletter. Of course, I also then move across the ocean. And I'm part of this residency, which has been really great, but in this first 2-3 weeks that we've been here, it has been just nonstop movement in a way that makes it really hard for me to sit down and work, sit down and write the way that I want to write. That is an example of, some of that resistance. Even though being a part of this residency is something that is ultimately helping me along the way, it has been very interesting to reckon with myself and be like, okay, well, in this new space where I have all these options of what to do and we have these great excursions that are available to us, how am I going to sit down and be deliberate about getting the work done? And even just to film this video, I opted out of one of our optional activities that I really wanted to go to, but I want to be committed to this. In terms of this dance of making a choice and then experiencing external resistance to that choice, getting tested to see if that's who you're really going to be, I think that first step is just to hold the awareness that there's a test coming or that there will be distractions offered to you in abundance, frankly. The second thing that I do to help myself through this process is I set a lot of reminders. Not only do I have my morning reminders, which I've talked about in another video, I leave my keyboard out. So I actually put my computer and a lot of things away off the desk because the bed is right here and I don't like to wake up and be accosted by work immediately. But leaving the keyboard out reminds me that this is the thing that I want to prioritize. And so even my phone goes away so that if I'm waking up in kind of like a haze, I have my journal very close to my bed. And then the other thing is the keyboard. I use this personally as little ways to kind of encode in my mind, like what to focus on first, what to think about, how to orient, especially when I am in that like waking phase where I'm more impressionable. I'm trying to think of other examples of reminders. I've said this before, or maybe this was on Instagram, but something that I used to do when I was building the habit of stretching every morning is that I would put a yoga mat in the way of the door so that as I'm going to open the door, I have to physically move a reminder out of my way. Either in that moment, I'm gonna pick up the yoga mat and go, oh right, it's time to stretch, or I'm gonna have to actively ignore that mat and that desire to stretch. Reminders aren't necessarily supposed to make you do the thing. It's just supposed to put it in your head that you want to do it. It's just supposed to remind you, obviously, help you to remember that that's the thing you said you wanted to do. Another thing is having an accountability team. Telling people what it is that you're trying to do so that you can have just a little bit of shame associated with not accomplishing it, but also they serve as another set of reminders. I can't think of the word, but there's something really poignant about having a person repeat to you what you said you wanted. Hearing your own words out of somebody else's mouth or your own intentions out of somebody else's mouth can sometimes just really kickstart oh, you're right. I need to be in action. So I will say that I generally struggle with offering accountability partners as a solution, because you need somebody who's invested enough in you and the thing that you're trying to do in order to hold you accountable. I don't think everybody always has access to that. So I offer it as an option, but I also wanted to just acknowledge that sometimes it can feel really hard to have access to someone who is going to hold you accountable in ways that are actually effective for you. Then this fourth one, I'm feeling a little low energy. Let me do a burpee. Here we go. Okay, I'm back. All right, hell yeah. And then this fourth one is a little bit of a bonus. It's a kind of advanced work, okay? But sometimes I will work with the distraction. When I know that I'm in the middle of a transformation or I'm like working towards becoming a certain version of myself, I will sometimes graft that journey of becoming onto a separate task. So for example, I'm learning a new piece on the piano. And so I am grafting in sort of time space or energy time. Yeah, that makes enough sense to me. So I'm grafting on like taking myself more seriously and the sort of like allotted distraction that I can have when, for example, I want to procrastinate on scripting a video or even recording it. I'm allowed to, as a distraction, learn my new piano piece. And I have found that is really helpful. I call these like gaptions, like gap actions. I find this really helpful because it also gives me a sense of where I am in the process of transformation. And so I know that right now I've gotten 3 pages into the new piano piece that I'm learning. And then I've been like kind of stalling out in a way that I feel like is a direct mirror to how I have been feeling and where I am energetically about taking my work more seriously as it relates to publishing once per week. I hope that's clear. I don't think it is. I understand that where I am in the process of this gap action, is mirroring where I am internally about this internal shift that I want to make. And so I have actually stalled out in this piano piece, and I know that it is directly tied to the fact that I am experiencing a very specific resistance to taking my work more seriously. So linking this back to the overall theme of like, once you've made a decision, you're going to encounter resistance. You're gonna encounter resistance, and then you're gonna be able to like move kind of freely, and then you're gonna encounter more resistance. And it is a beautiful dance and cycle that is going to be ongoing forever and all time. So with these gaptions, as I have dubbed them, it helps again to externalize the process. So now I can see, oh, okay, I've hit a little bit of a wall, but it also gives me a thing to do that feels productive while also allowing me to be distracted or to procrastinate in a way that I have like pre-approved. Thanks for watching. I would love, and I really mean this, I would love to hear about either your most recent or your most notable time when you've made a decision about who you're trying to be, and then life just gave you like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Energy. Please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about it. So last week I explained why create like nobody's watching is bad advice for creative people, specifically if you intend to share your work. So you can watch that here for an actionable reframe for how you can orient your work more effectively so that it reaches and resonates with the people who you actually want to speak to. Okay, thanks for watching.